There's palm oil in your sausage roll. The fresh sandwich you're eating for lunch often contains added sugar you'd never expect to find in something savoury. And that steak bake you've been buying every Tuesday for the past 5 years. The ingredient list is longer than most people's weekly shopping lists. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on Britain's most beloved high street bakery. Not with opinions, not with nostalgia, but with what's actually written on the labels. And once you see how these fan-favourite foods are really made, you might never look at that queue the same way again. 8. The chicken bake. Starting off, we have something that sounds wholesome enough. Chicken and vegetables in pastry. What could possibly be wrong with that? Everything, it turns out. The chicken bake is a masterclass in making something that contains chicken without actually tasting like chicken. One customer described it perfectly. It's like they've created chicken-flavored paste and then added exactly 3 visible pieces of actual chicken so they can legally call it a chicken bake. Let's talk about what's really in there. Modified maize starch, dextrose, stabilizers, emulsifiers, flavorings. The filling is held together with more chemicals than ingredients you'd recognize. The sauce is thickened with modified starch rather than made from actual stock or cream. And here's the thing that should bother you. Real chicken pie filling is incredibly simple to make. Chicken, onions, perhaps some carrots and peas, a sauce made from butter, flour and stock. That's it. But that would cost more and wouldn't last as long on the shelf. So instead we get this reformed, reconstituted version that bears little resemblance to anything your grandmother would have recognized as a chicken pie. Coming in at number 7, the Tuna Crunch Baguette. Sounds healthy, doesn't it? Tuna is protein, omega-3s, good stuff. But here's what one nutrition-conscious customer discovered. I checked the label out of curiosity and nearly dropped it. The ingredient list was absolutely wild. In a tuna sandwich, how is that even possible? It's possible because that's not tuna salad as you'd make it at home. We tasted it and we came to the conclusion that the tuna mayo mix must be loaded with additives and fillers, the sweet corn packed in heavily processed brine, and that the sauce contains all sorts of questionable ingredients to stretch out the cheaper components. It feels like you're essentially eating something that barely resembles real food. And then there's the tuna itself. The cheapest possible sauce, which is fine, but it's mixed with so much mayo and filler that you're getting more additives than actual fish. The baguette, of course, is that same industrially produced bread that goes stale within hours if you don't eat it immediately. Soft, not because it's fresh, but because it's pumped full of dough conditioners and emulsifiers to maintain that texture. 6. The all-day breakfast wrap. This one is particularly offensive because it takes the concept of a proper British breakfast and absolutely massacres it. The all-day breakfast wrap promises sausage, bacon, egg and a hash brown. What it delivers is a collection of the cheapest possible versions of each ingredient wrapped in a tortilla that has the structural integrity of damp tissue paper. Let's start with the sausage. One employee who wished to remain anonymous revealed, the sausages are about 60% meat at best. The rest is rusk, water, and whatever else they can legally add to bulk it out. They're pre-cooked and we just reheat them. The bacon is like those thin, reformed strips that curl up into hard little tubes because they're mostly water. When you heat them, they release all that water and shrink to half their size. That's not proper bacon. That seems like mechanically recovered meat product shaped to look like bacon. And the egg? It's not a fried egg. It's not even a real scrambled egg. It's an egg patty made from liquid egg with added water, modified starch, and preservatives shaped in a factory and frozen. As one disappointed customer wrote, I bit into it expecting egg and got something with the texture of a kitchen sponge that vaguely tasted like egg. The whole thing is held together with a sauce that's primarily oil, sugar, and thickeners. You're paying £3.50 for what seems like to us industrial waste products assembled into breakfast shape. 5. The cheese and onion bake. Here we have a vegetarian option that proves meat isn't the only thing GREGGS can ruin. The cheese and onion bake should be simple. Pastry, cheese, onions. 3 ingredients. But GREGGS has managed to engineer it into something that contains palm oil, modified starch, glucose syrup, and a list of E numbers that would make any baker weep. Here's what really happens. The filling isn't cheese and onions. It's a cheese-flavored sauce with some onions floating in it. One vegetarian customer who'd been buying them for years finally read the ingredients. I saw so many different additives and stabilizers that I lost count. For cheese and onion, I can make cheese and onion pie at home with 5 ingredients total. The cheese is a mixture of actual cheese, which is expensive, and cheese powder, whey powder, and modified starch, which are cheap. The result is something that tastes vaguely of cheese but has that distinctive processed texture that coats your mouth. And the pastry is the same mass-produced puff pastry used in everything else, loaded with palm oil because it's cheaper than butter. Real puff pastry is butter, flour, and water. This is vegetable oils, emulsifiers, flour treatment agents, and a long list of things that exist to give it shelf life rather than flavor. One regular customer noticed the decline. They used to be good about 10 years ago, proper filling, actual taste. Now it's just disappointing. At number 4, the Yum Yum. This is something GREGGS heavily markets to children, which makes it even worse. The Yum Yum is sold as a treat, a sweet indulgence, a little reward. What it actually is, deep-fried dough soaked in sugar glaze made from palm oil, glucose syrup, and artificial flavorings. Let's be clear about what's happening here. This isn't a donut made fresh in a bakery. This is industrial fried dough, mass-produced in a factory, frozen, shipped, and then defrosted in store. The glaze isn't real icing, it's confectioner's glaze, a combination of sugar and palm oil. One parent who bought them regularly for her kids finally looked at the label. I felt genuinely guilty. The ingredient list was terrifying, and these are marketed to children with that fun name and bright colours. The worst part? A proper donut from an actual bakery, made fresh that morning with real ingredients. Costs about the same. But GREGGS has convinced people that their frozen, reheated, palm oil-laden version is equivalent. At 3, the packaged sandwich range. Now, we're not talking about one specific sandwich, but rather the entire range of packaged sandwiches that sit in those chiller cabinets. These are the ones that look so perfect in their plastic triangular containers. Perfectly cut, ingredients arranged just so, labels promising things like chicken salad or prawn mayo or ham and cheese. But here's what multiple customers have noticed. They all taste the same, like fundamentally the same. The chicken tastes like the ham, which tastes like the tuna. They all just taste of mayo and sweetness. That's because most of them are made with the same base formula. A formula like cheaper protein sources, excessive mayo to add moisture and bulk, sugar to make it palatable, and enough preservatives to give them a shelf life of several days. One sandwich which drew particular criticism was the Chicken and Bacon Club. A customer broke it down. Chicken that's clearly reformed and pressed, bacon that's more like flavored cardboard, mayo that's more sugar than egg, and bread that somehow manages to be both dry and soggy at the same time. The bread is particularly offensive. It's not made in a bakery. It's factory bread designed to stay soft for days, which means emulsifiers, dough conditioners, flour treatment agents, and preservatives. Real bread goes stale in a day because it's real. This stays fresh for 3 days because it's engineered to. And here's the truly depressing part. These sandwiches cost £3 to £4. You could go to any local sandwich shop and get a fresh sandwich made to order with actual ingredients for the same price. But GREGGS has convinced us that convenient equals acceptable. Number 2 is going to be controversial because the steak bake is genuinely one of GREGGS' most popular items. People are devoted to it. They'll queue specifically for it, but popularity doesn't mean quality. And the steak bake is a perfect example of British people accepting something mediocre because it's familiar. Let's talk about the steak. This isn't steak in any traditional sense. It's beef, yes, but it's the cheapest possible cuts, mechanically recovered, reformed, and mixed with so much gravy that the meat content is actually quite low. One customer who worked in food manufacturing explained, that filling is at least 60% gravy, and that gravy is mostly water, modified starch, glucose syrup, and flavorings. The actual beef content is minimal. The ingredient list includes things like beef stock made from yeast extract, caramel color to make it look richer than it is, and enough salt to make up for the lack of actual flavor from real ingredients. One regular buyer finally admitted, I think I like the idea of it more than the actual thing. Every time I eat one, I'm slightly disappointed, but I keep going back. And here's the most damning evidence of all. Multiple people have tried to recreate the steak bake at home and discovered something interesting. As one home cook wrote, I made a steak pie with actual stewing steak, onions, and proper gravy. Cost me about the same per portion as a GREGGS steak bake. Tasted 1,000 times better. Made me realize I've been eating something like flavored paste for years. The pastry again is that same industrial puff pastry loaded with palm oil and additives. Real puff pastry should shatter when you bite it, leaving buttery flakes. This just sort of compresses. And here we are at number 1, the sausage roll. In our opinion, the worst thing you can buy from GREGGS, the item that made them famous. the product they sell millions of every week, the mighty sausage roll. I can hear the protests already. But I love GREGGS sausage rolls, and I believe you. But loving something doesn't make it good, it makes it familiar. And GREGGS has spent decades making sure their sausage roll is the version your brain defaults to when you think of sausage rolls. Here's what's actually in a GREGGS sausage roll. The sausage meat is often about 47% pork, less than half. The rest is water, rusk made from wheat flour, and pork fat, plus a cocktail of preservatives, flavorings, and stabilizers. One butcher who makes traditional sausage rolls in his shop said, "What they're selling isn't a sausage roll, it's a meat-flavored pastry product. A proper sausage roll should be at least 80% meat." The seasoning isn't sage, black pepper, and salt like a traditional British sausage. It's flavorings, which could mean anything. It could mean MSG to boost the taste, and enough salt to make up for the lack of quality in the meat itself. And that pastry, palm oil, hydrogenated vegetable fats, emulsifiers, and flour improvers. The only reason it's flaky is because of the engineering, not because of quality ingredients. One person described the experience perfectly. It's weirdly addictive, but in the same way a McDonald's is addictive. It's engineered to be more-ish, not actually good. Perhaps the most telling comment came from someone who'd eaten them for 20 years. "I went to a proper butcher and bought a fresh sausage roll, took one bite and actually felt sad. This is what I've been missing. This is what it's supposed to taste like. GREGGS has been selling me a lie." The GREGGS sausage roll wins the #1 spot, not because it's the most offensive ingredient-wise, though it's up there, but because it's the most successful con. They've convinced an entire nation that this is what a sausage roll should be. It's not. Now, I promised you this wouldn't be entirely negative. Because despite everything we've just covered, there are actually two things at GREGGS that are genuinely decent. Two items where, even with industrial production and cost cutting, they've managed to deliver something that's actually worth buying. Number 2, the freshly baked donuts. Ring donuts, not filled. Here's the thing, a ring donut is very difficult to ruin. It's fried dough with sugar, that's it. And while GREGGS donuts are still made in a factory and frozen, the actual product isn't bad. The ingredient list, while not perfect, is relatively reasonable. Wheat flour, water, sugar, yeast, vegetable oil for frying, and a few additives for texture. Nothing outrageous. One customer who'd sworn off everything else at GREGGS said, "The plain ring donuts are actually fine. They taste like donuts, not amazing, but perfectly acceptable for the price." The key is they're simple enough that there's not much to ruin. No weird fillings made from modified starch, no cheese that isn't cheese, no meat that's mostly not meat. Just fried dough and sugar. Are they as good as a fresh donut from an artisan bakery? Of course not. But for a quick, cheap, sweet treat, they're honest about what they are. Number 1, the plain sausage from the breakfast menu. And the #1 thing you can actually buy from GREGGS with a clear conscience is, surprisingly, the breakfast sausages when bought on their own. Unlike the sausage roll, the breakfast sausages are closer to actual sausages. They're still not premium quality, we're not talking butcher's bangers here, but they're a reasonable processed sausage product. The meat content is higher, around 70%, which while not fantastic, is acceptable for a budget breakfast item. One regular who gets them every Saturday morning and explained, "Look, I'm not pretending they're gourmet, but they're proper sausages. They taste like sausage. The texture is right. They're cooked fresh that morning. For £1.50, you could do a lot worse." The ingredients are relatively straightforward. Pork, rusk, water, seasoning. Still some stabilizers and preservatives, but nothing like the horror show in most of their other products. And crucially, they're cooked to order in the shop, rather than just reheated from frozen. Another customer who worked in food service said, "The breakfast sausages are probably the most honest thing they sell. It's a budget sausage, and it tastes like a budget sausage, but it's not pretending to be something it's not." Here's what you need to understand about GREGGS. They're not a bakery, they're a reheating operation. Almost nothing is made fresh in store. It's all manufactured in industrial facilities, frozen, distributed, and then heated up in the shop to create the illusion of fresh baking. That doesn't automatically make everything bad. Our #1 pick proves that. But it means you need to be realistic about what you're buying. You're not getting a freshly made steak bake. You're getting an industrially produced frozen pastry product that's been reheated. The problem isn't that GREGGS is cheap. Cheap food can still be good food made with honest ingredients. The problem is that most of what they sell is engineered for profit margins and shelf life rather than taste or quality. You don't have to stop going to GREGGS entirely, but maybe make better choices. Skip the sandwiches and make your own. Avoid anything with mysterious fillings. And for the love of food, stop buying the sausage rolls and discover what a real one tastes like from a proper butcher. Britain has an incredible food culture when we choose to support it. But as long as we keep accepting palm oil and modified starch as normal, as long as we keep buying products where meat is less than 50% of the meat product, we're telling these companies that we don't care about quality. We deserve better than fillings bulked out with starch and additives. We deserve better than cheese that's been diluted into a processed sauce. And we definitely deserve better than paying £3 for a sandwich where sugar and mayo do more of the work than the protein. Greggs has built an empire on convenience and nostalgia. But convenience shouldn't mean accepting inferior products, and nostalgia isn't an excuse for engineering food in laboratories rather than making it in kitchens. Next time you're in that queue, maybe think twice. Your money is your vote. Spend it on food that actually deserves to be called food.